nothing but a heartache. I was lost in France. Bitter blue, breaking everything I can do. A total eclipse of the heart.
In July of 2026, the music world said goodbye to Bonnie Tyler. She was 75 years old. Across the world, tributes began pouring in. Fans remembered the songs, the concerts, the unmistakable voice that had filled radios, arenas, and hearts for more than 5 decades. For many, Bonnie Tyler wasn't simply another singer from the 1980s. She was the soundtrack to first loves, unforgettable nights, heartbreak, hope, and some of the biggest songs ever recorded. It's a heartache, holding out for a hero, Total Eclipse of the Heart, songs that have outlived generations. Yet as the world remembered Bonnie Tyler, one extraordinary truth stood out above everything else. The voice that made her famous wasn't the voice she was born with. In fact, years before she became a global superstar, doctors feared she might never sing the same way again. A routine operation threatened to end everything. And when Bonnie accidentally ignored one simple instruction, it permanently changed her voice. For most singers, that would have been the end of the dream. For Bonnie Tyler, it became the beginning, because sometimes life doesn't make us extraordinary by protecting us from hardship. Sometimes it makes us extraordinary because of it. What looked like a career-ending setback became one of the most recognizable voices in music history. This isn't simply the story of a singer. It's a story of resilience, reinvention, and proof that our greatest weaknesses can become our greatest strengths. This is the story of Bonnie Tyler, the voice that was never supposed to exist. Long before the platinum records, long before the sold-out arenas, long before the world knew her name, Bonnie Tyler was simply a young girl growing up in a small mining town in South Wales. She had no idea that one day, the very thing she feared losing would become the reason the world would never forget her. Before the platinum records, before the sold-out arenas, before one of the most recognizable voices in music history, Bonnie Tyler was simply a little girl growing up in South Wales. Long before the world knew her name, she was Gaynor Hopkins, born on June 8, 1951, in the small mining town of Skewen. It was a community built on hard work, coal mines, steelworks, families who understood resilience because they lived it every day. Bonnie grew up in a large household with brothers and sisters, where money wasn't always plentiful, but music always seemed to find its way inside. Her father worked as a coal miner. Her mother loved to sing. The family attended chapel. Gospel hymns echoed through the building each week. Those songs weren't just music. They were emotion, hope, community, faith. And without realizing it, Bonnie was already learning something that would define her entire career. Great singing isn't about perfection. It's about making people feel something. As a young girl, she was fascinated by music, American rock and roll, country music, soul, the powerful female voices that filled the radio. She dreamed quietly, like so many children do. Every singer has one instrument, their voice. It isn't something they simply use. It's who they are, their identity, their confidence, their future. And for Bonnie Tyler, that future suddenly looked uncertain. Doctors had discovered nodules on her vocal cords. The diagnosis wasn't uncommon for professional singers. Years of performing, pushing her voice, and constant strain had taken their toll. Surgery was recommended. It was considered routine. But there was one instruction that mattered more than anything else: complete silence. After the operation, Bonnie was told not to speak. Not for days. Every word risked damaging the healing vocal cords. It was the only way to give her voice the best chance of recovering. Imagine that for a moment. A singer, forbidden to speak. The one thing she'd spent her entire life depending on. Suddenly unavailable. Bonnie later admitted that staying silent was far harder than she expected. She was impatient, restless, hopeful to get back to normal. Then, she made a decision that would change her life forever. She began talking before her doctors said she should. At the time, it probably didn't seem like a life-changing moment. Just a few words, a conversation, a small mistake. But those few words permanently altered her voice. When the healing was complete, something had changed. The smooth voice she'd always known was gone. In its place was something rougher, deeper, smokier, a voice filled with grit, emotion, texture. Bonnie was devastated. She didn't hear uniqueness. She heard damage. She wondered if she'd ruined everything. if one impatient decision had ended the dream she'd spent years chasing. For many performers, it probably would have. But sometimes, life has a strange way of rewriting our plans. Because while Bonnie heard imperfection, music producers heard something completely different. Character, authenticity, a voice that didn't sound like anyone else. In an industry filled with polished singers, Bonnie Tyler suddenly had something impossible to manufacture. Instantly recognizable. One note, and people knew exactly who they were listening to. What Bonnie believed was the worst thing that had ever happened to her quietly became her greatest advantage. It's one of the great ironies in music history. The accident she feared would end her career became the very reason the world remembered it. Looking back today, it's tempting to call it destiny, but it didn't feel like destiny at the time. It felt like loss, fear, regret, which is often how transformation begins. We don't recognize it while we're living through it. We only understand it when we look back. Bonnie Tyler walked into that hospital terrified she might lose her voice. She walked out with a voice that millions of people would one day fall in love with. And soon, the world would hear it for the very first time, changing Bonnie Tyler's life and music history forever. The new voice was unlike anything on the radio. Raw, powerful, unmistakably human. All Bonnie Tyler needed now was the right song. She was about to get much more than that. She was about to receive one of the greatest songs ever written. Sometimes, success doesn't arrive all at once. Sometimes it arrives quietly. One song, one performance, one opportunity at a time. For Bonnie Tyler, that opportunity came in 1977. A song called Heartache. From the very first note, people noticed something different. This wasn't the polished, flawless voice dominating the charts. It sounded lived in, weathered, honest. There was pain in it, strength in it, vulnerability in it. Bonnie didn't simply sing heartbreak. She sounded like she'd survived it. The song became an international hit, climbing charts across Europe, Australia, Canada, the United States. Suddenly, the voice Bonnie once feared had become her greatest asset. She was no longer trying to sound like everyone else. The world wanted Bonnie Tyler, because nobody else sounded like Bonnie Tyler. But as enormous as the heartache was, something even bigger was waiting. In the early 1980s, songwriter and producer Jim Steinman was searching for a voice. Not just someone who could sing his music, someone who could survive it. His songs weren't ordinary pop records. They were dramatic, emotional, almost theatrical. They demanded everything from the person behind the microphone. Most singers would have struggled to carry that kind of emotion. Bonnie Tyler didn't. She embraced it. When she walked into the studio to record Total Eclipse of the Heart, nobody could have predicted what was about to happen. Released in 1983, the song became a global phenomenon, #1 in country after country, selling millions of copies, dominating radio stations around the world. Even today, decades later, its opening notes are instantly recognizable. But what made the song unforgettable wasn't simply the melody. It was the voice. Powerful, fragile, desperate, hopeful. Bonnie Tyler didn't perform the song. She lived inside it. Every word felt real. Every chorus felt like a storm breaking open. It became one of the defining songs of the 1980s. Then came another anthem, Holding Out for a Hero, a song bursting with energy, urgency, strength. It showed another side of Bonnie Tyler. Fearless, bold, larger than life. By now, Bonnie wasn't simply enjoying success. She had become one of the most distinctive voices in popular music. Looking back, it's almost impossible to imagine those songs being sung by anyone else. And perhaps that's the greatest compliment any artist can receive. Because Bonnie Tyler wasn't successful despite her unusual voice. She was successful because of it. The very thing she once believed had ruined her career had become her signature, her identity, her legacy. It's a reminder that perfection is rarely what people remember. Authenticity is. We remember the cracks, the imperfections, the emotion, the humanity, because that's where people connect. Bonnie Tyler had finally found her place in the world. The little girl from South Wales, the young woman terrified she'd lost everything, was now singing songs that would outlive generations. Yet despite worldwide fame, Bonnie Tyler never allowed success to define who she was. Because unlike so many artists before her, she understood something important. Fame comes and goes. Character remains. And that may be why her story was only just beginning. Because the biggest surprise about Bonnie Tyler wasn't becoming famous. It was how she chose to live after she already had everything. Many artists spend their life chasing success. Bonnie Tyler found it. But instead of letting fame change her, she chose something far more difficult. She chose to remain herself. And in an industry that often rewards reinvention, Bonnie Tyler proved that authenticity could be just as powerful. For many artists, one global hit becomes both a blessing and a burden, because once you created a song the whole world knows, every song that follows is measured against it. Every performance is compared to it. Every interview eventually comes back to it. Bonnie Tyler understood that better than most. Total Eclipse of the Heart became one of the defining songs of the 1980s. It crossed generations, countries, languages, decades. Even today, people who weren't even born when it was released still know every chorus. For many artists, living in the shadow of such a song would have been frustrating. But Bonnie never seemed interested in fighting her legacy. She embraced it. She understood something that many performers struggle to accept. Great songs don't belong to the artist forever. Eventually, they belong to the people. Night after night, Bonnie walked onto stages around the world, singing the songs audiences had loved for decades. And every night, she sang them with the same passion. Not because she had to, because she genuinely loved performing. Unlike many stars whose lives became consumed by celebrity, Bonnie managed something remarkably rare. She remained grounded. Friends and colleagues often described her as approachable, funny, warm, someone who never believed her own publicity. She enjoyed success, but she never seemed obsessed by it. There were no endless public feuds, no constant tabloid scandals, no desperate attempts to stay in headlines. Bonnie simply kept doing what she loved, making music, touring, connecting with audiences. In an industry that constantly demands reinvention, Bonnie chose authenticity. She never tried to become someone else. She never chased trends. She trusted the voice that had made her unique, and audiences rewarded her for it. Across Europe, Australia, and countless other parts of the world, she continued performing for generations of fans. Some had grown up with her music. Others had discovered it decades later. Parents introduced her songs to their children. Those children grew up and introduced them to theirs. That's when a song becomes something more than a hit. It becomes timeless. Bonnie Tyler also embraced opportunities beyond traditional recording. She appeared on television, continued releasing new music, represented the United Kingdom at the Eurovision Song Contest in 2013, and remained a familiar face to audiences who had followed her journey for decades. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about Bonnie's career wasn't how long it lasted. It was how consistently she remained herself. The fame never seemed to replace the young woman from South Wales. She still laughed easily, still spoke honestly, still carried herself with humility. Looking back now, it's easy to understand why so many people admired Bonnie Tyler. Not simply because she possessed one of the most distinctive voices in music, but because she never allowed success to define her worth. She knew exactly who she was. Long after the awards, the chart positions, and the headlines faded, Bonnie Tyler continued doing what she had always loved, standing on a stage, sharing songs, and reminding people that emotion will always matter more than perfection. It's a lesson that feels increasingly rare today. In a world chasing flawless performances, Bonnie Tyler reminded us that people connect with honesty, with vulnerability, with voices that tell the truth. And perhaps that's why her music has endured for so long. Because long after trends disappeared, Bonnie Tyler never stopped sounding like Bonnie Tyler, and that authenticity would become one of the greatest gifts she left behind. Because the final chapter of her story wouldn't simply be about how she was remembered. It would be about what her remarkable life continues to teach us. In July of 2026, the world said goodbye to Bonnie Tyler, but as fans revisited her songs, something became wonderfully clear. Her greatest legacy was never just her music. It was a reminder that sometimes life's greatest setbacks become life's greatest gifts. On July 8, 2026, the music world paused. Bonnie Tyler had passed away at the age of 75. The news spread quickly. Fans across the world shared memories. Musicians paid tribute. Radio stations once again filled the airwaves with the songs that had defined generations. For many, it felt like saying goodbye to an old friend. Because Bonnie Tyler's music had always been more than entertainment. It had become part of people's lives. First dances, long road trips, heartbreak, weddings, family gatherings, quiet moments alone. Her songs had accompanied millions of ordinary lives. And perhaps that's the greatest achievement any artist can hope for. Not simply to be heard, but to become part of someone's memories. As tributes poured in, many celebrated the incredible career, the awards, the records, the sold-out concerts, the timeless songs. But behind every headline, there was another story worth remembering. The story of a young woman who almost lost everything before she ever became famous. The story of someone who believed one mistake had destroyed her future, only to discover it had quietly created it. Looking back now, it's impossible to imagine popular music without Bonnie Tyler's unmistakable voice. Yet for a brief moment, Bonnie herself wished it sounded different. Isn't that extraordinary? The very thing the world celebrated was once the thing she feared most. Maybe that's why her story feels so deeply human. Because all of us carry something we wish were different. A weakness, a disappointment, a setback, something we believe has closed a door forever. Bonnie Tyler reminds us that life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes, the closed door forces us to walk through a better one. Sometimes, the thing we spend years trying to hide becomes the very thing people love us for. That's what happened to Bonnie. Her rasp wasn't manufactured. It wasn't a marketing strategy. It wasn't carefully designed. It was real, and people connected with it because it was real. In an industry often obsessed with perfection, Bonnie Tyler became unforgettable because she wasn't perfect. She was authentic. Her voice carried something technology can never create. Experience, emotion, resilience, truth. That's why decades later, one note is all it takes. You instantly know who's singing. Very few artists achieve that. Bonnie Tyler did. And perhaps that's her greatest legacy. Not simply that she sold millions of records, or filled stadiums, or created timeless songs, but that she gave hope to anyone who's ever believed they weren't enough. She proved that what makes us different can also make us unforgettable. Which brings us back to the question we asked at the beginning. Can the thing that breaks you become the thing that defines you? Bonnie Tyler answered that question with her entire life. Not through speeches, not through interviews, but through every song she ever sang. The voice that she once believed she'd lost became the voice the world would never forget. And maybe that's a lesson Bonnie Tyler leaves all of us. We spend so much of our lives wishing we were different, smoother, stronger, more polished, more like everyone else. Yet sometimes, it's the very things we try to change that make us extraordinary. Bonnie Tyler didn't become legendary despite what happened to her. She became legendary because of it. She showed us that resilience isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about allowing hardship to shape us into someone stronger, someone wiser, someone unforgettable. Bonnie Tyler's voice may have fallen silent, but her story never will. Because every time someone hears those opening notes, every time someone turns up the volume, every time someone sings along at the top of their lungs, they'll be reminded of something far more important than a hit song. They'll be reminded that sometimes the greatest gifts in life arrive disguised as our greatest setbacks. This was Bonnie Tyler, the voice that was never supposed to exist. And because of that, the voice the world will never forget. Because behind every legend is a human story worth telling. Thank you for watching. We'll see you after the spotlight.